In the valley of Elah, two armies stood frozen, locked in a standoff that had stretched for 40 agonizing days. On one side, the armies of Israel, paralyzed by a fear so thick it choked the very air they breathed. On the other, the Philistine champion, a giant of a man named Goliath. He was a mountain of muscle and bronze, his armor glinting menacingly under the harsh sun. His spear was like a weaver's beam, and his voice, a thunderous roar that echoed across the valley, mocked the Israelites and their God, day after day. He was arrogance personified, a seemingly invincible force of nature that had crushed the spirit of an entire nation. The soldiers of Israel could only cower behind their shields, their prayers lost in the shadow of this behemoth. Who could possibly face such a monster? The challenge was clear: send a champion, winner take all. But no one dared. Not a single seasoned warrior stepped forward. The nation's hope was dwindling, its faith flickering like a candle in a storm. But then, an unlikely figure emerged from the ranks. Not a soldier, not a captain, but a boy. David, a young shepherd, his face still soft with youth, his hands calloused not from a sword's hilt, but from a shepherd's staff and a harp's strings. He had come to the battlefield only to bring food to his older brothers, but he heard the giant's blasphemous taunts, and while seasoned warriors trembled, something ignited in David's heart. It wasn't foolish pride or a thirst for glory. It was a fierce, protective faith. He saw not a giant, but an offense against the God he served. He went before King Saul, his eyes burning with a conviction that defied his small stature. He spoke not of his own strength, but of the times God had delivered him from the lion and the bear, while protecting his father, his sheep. This giant, he declared, would be no different. The same God who saved him in the wilderness would save him now. Saul, desperate, agreed. He tried to outfit David in his own royal armor, a heavy bronze helmet and a coat of mail. But it was foreign to the boy. It was a warrior's protection, but David's trust was not in bronze or steel. He shed the heavy armor, casting it aside. He was a shepherd, and he would face this giant as a shepherd. He walked to the nearby brook and, with a calm and deliberate purpose, selected 5 smooth stones, his only weapons, a simple staff in one hand and his sling in the other. As he walked out onto the valley floor, a lone, small figure against the vast, empty space, the Philistines erupted in laughter. Goliath squinted, his face contorting in a sneer of pure contempt. "Am I a dog," he bellowed, "that you come at me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods, promising to feed his flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David did not flinch. His voice, clear and steady, cut through the giant's roar. "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin," he called out. "But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." This wasn't a battle of flesh and blood, of size and strength. David reframed the entire conflict. It was a battle of faith. He declared that the whole world would know that there is a God in Israel, and that the Lord does not save with sword and spear. The battle, he proclaimed, is the Lord's, and with that, the time for words was over. David began to run, not away from the giant, but toward him, the small shepherd boy, charging at the mountain of a man. It was an unbelievable sight. With fluid, practiced grace, David reached into his bag, took out one of his smooth stones, and fitted it into the leather pouch of his sling. The world seemed to slow down. The jeers of the Philistines, the terrified silence of the Israelites, all faded into a dull hum. There was only the boy, the sling, and the giant. He began to swing it, once, twice, the sling whipping through the air, building momentum, a blur of motion. Goliath, still lumbering forward, raised his massive shield, confident in his defenses. But David's aim was true. With a final, powerful whip of his arm, he released the stone. It flew from the sling, a small, dark projectile cutting through the air with impossible speed and precision. It wasn't aimed at the armor or the shield. It was aimed at the one small patch of exposed flesh on the giant's forehead. The stone found its mark. The impact was sickeningly solid. Goliath's head snapped back. The arrogant sneer on his face was replaced by a look of pure, dumbfounded shock. For a moment, the giant stood frozen, his colossal body swaying. Then, like a great tree being felled, he crashed forward, his massive frame hitting the ground with a thunderous boom that shook the very earth. The champion was dead. For a heartbeat, there was absolute silence. Then, a single shout from the Israelite side, then another, and another, until it became a deafening roar of triumph. A wave of courage washed over them, and they charged forward, routing the terrified and leaderless Philistine army. A shepherd boy, with a sling and a stone, had done the impossible. He proved that it's not the size of the warrior that matters, but the size of their faith. Thank you for watching. If this story inspires you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the power of faith and the triumph of the underdog.